Hello and welcome to the Intentional Brief, your weekly video update on the one big thing in cybersecurity news for mid-market companies, their investors, and management teams. I'm your host, Shay Colson, managing partner at Intentional Cybersecurity, and you can find us online at intentionalcyber.com. Today is Monday, January 13th, 2025, and if the first 2 weeks of 2025 are any indicator from a cyber news perspective, we're going to be in for a long year, folks. I want to pull a couple headlines from this past week and just give us all a thought experiment that you should ponder yourself and then run through with both your technical team and your leadership team. And it centers around this question. And the question is this: when does this become our breach? It was reported last week that edtech company PowerSchools suffered a breach in late December. For those of you not often in the K-12 space, PowerSchool is the largest provider of cloud-based education software for the K-12 market. Their own numbers state that they have over 16,000 school districts as customers, with a reach of approximately 50 to 60 million students here in North America, both the US and Canada. And unfortunately, it does seem like they lost most all of that data about students. There have been a few news stories covering this event, and PowerSchools has since sent their own email to clients indicating a little bit about what happened. But unfortunately, it appears that the product that was impacted was what they call their PowerSchool Student Information System, which includes social security numbers, grades, medical information, and they're still being a little cagey in terms of the total impact. So at this point, users are assuming the worst. PowerSchools has said that they worked with an outside firm to ensure that the stolen data was deleted, but beyond that, details remain pretty light. Though I would note for the running theme here of these conversations on this show that it does appear that it was compromised credentials of an internal employee from the support side of the house that led to the breach. Just another reminder to all of us the value of both multi-factor authentication and the role of least privilege, neither of which appear to have been in place at a material level here in this breach. But the larger issue that this raises, both for school districts and then for all of us, is one where you'll eventually encounter this yourself. When does this issue become our breach? Our breach. So we're already seeing local media coverage from school leaders who are both acknowledging the incident and coverage from leaders who have not yet acknowledged the incident, going both positive as negative, as you might imagine. And this is an understandably difficult set of circumstances to navigate. Was the school district hacked? No, but the reality of the situation is that their most sensitive data about their students was stolen, and the district is the one who both chose and utilized and paid for and gave the data to the vendor. So this is, of course, becoming more and more common as we move into this kind of point solution ecosystem approach to technology. And in many ways, it's really just a matter of time before you're going to have to face this dilemma yourself. So if you haven't already faced it, I would offer the following as some thought experiments, discussion topics, and maybe even tabletop exercises for you and your technical and leadership teams as you move into 2025. The first question here is very plain. Do we have an understanding? Do I have an understanding of which vendors have the highest amounts of the most sensitive data that we have, whatever that means for your organization? Do you know who those vendors are? Do you know what they have? Do you know how much of it they have? The second question would be, do we have any sense of a risk assessment, a third-party risk management program, or contractual clauses relating to cybersecurity controls for that vendor? Do we have any idea what their cyber posture or program is like? And if not, that's certainly an opportunity. And then the third question for you to run through, both for yourself, technical teams, and then up to the leadership team, is what would happen? What would we do if those vendors had a total breach? Right? There's no sense in messing about with a partial breach or a minor loss. Go whole hog for the planning piece, because then if something smaller than that happens, you'll be pleasantly surprised rather than having a small scenario turn into a big reality and being unprepared. So this would be things like, do you have logs where you can determine what data was impacted? Do you have communications channels with the vendors to understand the dynamics in these difficult scenarios? Not just the salespeople, but the security people, the ops people, as well as external communication templates or channels in place for your own organization to communicate to your stakeholders. What are the implications for your own insurance, regulatory, and litigation experiences if this data was lost by a vendor that you were playing a part in being the both selector, custodian, customer of, etc.? we're going to see all of these questions get answered in real time across many thousands of school districts in the next weeks and months ahead. But it's going to be very interesting, particularly for those public school districts where communication is subject to public information requests, such as those here in Washington State, where you can request any email that was either sent to or received by a school district just by filling out the form. So tackling these issues in real time with no preparation is absolutely overwhelming, and it's unrealistic to expect your team or any of these school district-sized teams to handle this all gracefully as it comes up. Some pre-planning and some pre-positioning is absolutely necessary if you want to be able to mount a meaningful response when the call eventually does come. So do yourself that favor, and if you haven't run through these exercises internally with your technical teams and with your leadership teams, put them on your list for the sooner rather than later bucket. Indications of third-party vendors who are large players in an ecosystem being targeted continue to be present in 2025, and that's something I think we're going to see regardless of your industry. So do yourself the favor, get the homework done, get the reps in, put the pieces in place. That will take the edge off of a very difficult situation. It's still going to be a bad day, but it doesn't have to be the worst day ever if you do a little prep ahead of time. From a fundraising perspective, we're seeing a slow start to the year with only $8.2 billion in newly committed capital last week, most of it led by two funds. The first from FTV Capital, who raised $3.4 billion for their 8th growth equity fund, and an additional $651 million for an early stage fund called Ascend, and Vistria Group out of Chicago, who raised $3 billion for their 5th flagship PE fund. So we'll see if the trend continues to be slightly lower here in 2025. Again, plenty of dry powder for most funds to deploy, awaiting a place to go here in 2025. Maybe post-inauguration, we'll see, maybe early into Q1, maybe after the next kind of rate determination from the Fed. Who's to say, but we'll keep an eye. To close, a reminder that you can find links to all the articles that we covered in the comment section below. You can find back issues and written transcripts of these videos at intentionalcyber.com, and we will see you next week for another edition of the Intentional Brief.